The road to freedom. The desert highway stretched endlessly under the burning afternoon sun, shimmering with heat waves that made the horizon dance and blur. Jake Miller wiped the sweat from his forehead as he worked beneath the hood of an old pickup truck at his small roadside garage. The sign above read, "Miller's Mechanics," in faded letters that had seen too many sandstorms. Jake had owned this place for 5 years now, ever since he'd left the city behind. Out here, life moved slowly. Customers were few and far between, mostly truckers and travelers passing through on their way to somewhere else. Jake didn't mind the solitude. After growing up in foster care and bouncing between families who never really wanted him, he'd learned to appreciate his own company. The sound of screeching tires made him look up from the engine. A black SUV swerved wildly on the highway, smoke pouring from under its hood. Jake watched as it limped off the road and rolled to a stop about 50 yards from his garage. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the driver's door opened, and a woman stumbled out. Even from a distance, Jake could see she was in trouble. Her white dress was torn and stained, her blonde hair tangled and wild. She looked back down the highway, fear written clearly on her face, then turned and started running toward his garage. Jake grabbed a clean rag and walked out to meet her. As she got closer, he could see the desperation in her eyes, the way her hands trembled as she clutched what looked like a phone with a cracked screen. "Please," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, you have to help me. They're coming." Jake glanced at the highway, then back at her. Up close, he could see she'd been crying. There was a small cut above her eyebrow, and her feet were bleeding through her white wedding shoes. "Who's coming?" he asked calmly. "My family, my fiancé." She looked back again, panicked. "I can't go back. I won't." Jake had seen enough desperate people in his life to recognize the real thing. Whatever she was running from, her terror was genuine. He made a decision. "Come on," he said, guiding her toward the garage. "Let's get you inside." The garage was small but clean, with a tiny office in the back that Jake had converted into a living space. He led her there, locked the front door, and pulled down the metal shutters. When he turned back, she had collapsed into the worn armchair in the corner, her face in her hands. "I'm Jake," he said quietly. "Jake Miller." She looked up at him, her blue eyes rimmed with red. Emma Hartwell. The name meant nothing to Jake. He didn't follow society news or care much about wealthy families. He filled a glass with water from the small sink and handed it to her. "Drink this," he said. "Then tell me what happened." Emma took the water with shaking hands and drank deeply. Then, slowly, the story came out. She was supposed to get married that afternoon. The dress, the shoes, everything made sense now. But it wasn't a marriage she wanted. Her family, the Hartwells, had arranged it, a business merger disguised as a wedding. She'd realized she couldn't go through with it, so she'd run. "I just kept driving," she said softly. "I didn't even know where I was going. Then the car started smoking, and now." She trailed off, looking around the modest space. "You must think I'm crazy." "I think you're brave," Jake said simply. For the next 2 hours, they sat in that small office while Emma slowly calmed down. Jake made her a sandwich from the meager supplies in his mini fridge. She ate it like she hadn't seen food in days, even though it was just gas station bread and cheap cheese. As the sun began to set, painting the desert in shades of orange and red, Emma finally seemed to relax. She asked about Jake's life, and he found himself telling her things he rarely shared with anyone. About the foster homes, the lonely childhood, the decision to leave everything behind and build something simple and honest out here in the middle of nowhere. "That sounds peaceful," Emma said wistfully. "I've never had peace. My whole life has been scheduled, planned, arranged by someone else." "Well," Jake said, looking out the small window at the darkening sky, "you're free now. At least for tonight." But freedom came with a price. Around midnight, headlights appeared on the highway. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. Jake watched through a crack in the shutters as they passed the garage, then circled back. They'd seen the abandoned SUV. "Stay here," he told Emma, his voice calm but firm. "Don't make a sound." The knock on the metal shutter was loud and demanding. Jake opened the small door, stepping outside and closing it behind him. 3 men in expensive suits stood there, flanked by security guards. "We're looking for someone," one of them said, showing Jake a photo on his phone. It was Emma, smiling in what looked like a professional portrait. "Emma Hartwell, have you seen her?" Jake looked at the photo, then at the men. He thought about Emma's fear, her trembling hands, the desperation in her voice. He thought about what it meant to be trapped, to have no choices, to belong to other people instead of yourself. "No," he said calmly. "Haven't seen anyone all day." Slow Tuesday. The men searched the highway with flashlights, examined the SUV, and finally drove away. Jake waited another hour before going back inside. He found Emma sitting exactly where he'd left her, tears streaming silently down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't even know me, and you lied for me." "Why?" Jake sat down across from her. "Because everybody deserves a choice," he said. "Everybody deserves to be free." The next morning, Emma made a phone call. Not to her family, but to her lawyer. Jake learned then who the Hartwells really were, one of the wealthiest families in the state. Emma was worth billions. She could have offered him money, bought his silence, paid for his protection. But she didn't. Instead, she asked if she could stay for a few days, just until she figured things out. She offered to work, to help around the garage. Jake agreed. Those few days turned into 2 weeks. Emma learned to change oil, replace brake pads, and balance tires. She swept the garage floor, organized tools, and helped Jake with the books. At night, they sat in the desert and watched the stars, talking about everything and nothing. She told him about her life, the loneliness of wealth, the emptiness of never knowing who truly cared about you. He told her about his dreams, small and simple, of expanding the garage, maybe hiring an assistant someday. When her lawyer finally arrived with legal papers that would free her from her family's control, Emma stood at the edge of the highway, looking back at the garage. "Come with me," she said to Jake. "I'm starting over. I want to build something real, something honest. You showed me what that looks like." Jake smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I think you've got a pretty good idea already." 6 months later, Miller's Mechanics had a new sign and a new partner. Emma Hartwell Miller worked alongside her husband, her expensive dresses traded for coveralls, her manicured nails now stained with engine grease. And every evening, as the sun set over the desert, they stood together and watched the horizon, two people who'd found freedom in the most unexpected place. On a long, empty highway, in the middle of nowhere, where the only thing that mattered was the choice to be true to yourself.